Should I share the slide, sir?
Yes, please start. Yes, we are starting now. So, my warm welcome to all of you. This is the 239th edition of Thursday Musings. Today, we have what we can say a genius from another field, not directly related field to the mental health. He is in the creative world and he creates and narrates stories. And I think most of us have heard them. You have seen him on the TV or heard him on the radio. So, today, we'll be talking about can the stories change lives? So, can I change the narrative? Can I change my story to a better one? Can I bring about changes in myself, in my patients? So how does narration building stories help in mental health? And probably he'll give some tips and tricks how to make a good story, what makes a good story. So the session is being recorded. We'll put it on YouTube for later viewing. Everyone will be on the mute mode. The questions are invited in the chat box. So the moderators or the chairpersons can take up the questions to the presenter. Uh, Maybe we may be running short of time, so we'll finish a bit early. So request everyone to be quick. So next slide, please. I'm handing over the session to the chairman of this program, Professor Dr. Tufan Pati Saab. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Alim. Next slide, please. I shall briefly gloss about the names of our vibrant moderators. Dr. Amrit Patidosi, Honorary Secretary IPS, Dr. Alim Siddiqui, Honorary Treasurer IPS, Dr. Bishal Chavra, is an eminent psychiatrist from Delhi, and Dr. Shobit Gar from Dehradun. Welcome. And now we have the chairpersons, Dr. Shekhar Seshadri, who has been with us from the very outset and come many times. We owe a lot of obligation to him. Dr. Shekhar Seshadri is a child psychiatrist with over 40 years of experience in the field of child mental health. As former senior professor in the Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry in Enhance, his work has extended beyond clinical population to children and child care institutions, service providers across the country, as well as the South Asia region. Some of his special areas of interest are childhood trauma, gender and sexuality issues, and life skill education. Also, an artist and musician, he uses a number of creative methodology in child mental health interventions, including theater and developmental approaches. Dr. Sekhar is based in Bangalore, India, and is currently advisor to Sambad, support advocacy and mental health interventions for children in vulnerable circumstances and distress. A national initiative integrated resource for child protection, mental health, and psychosocial care, supported by the Minister of Women and Child Development, Government of India. Welcome, Dr. Shekhar Seshadri. Welcome, sir. We have with us Dr. Alok Saran, who is a great psychiatrist, but he has been modest enough to provide a very brief introductory note. Dr. Alok Sari, a practicing clinical psychiatrist in New Delhi, is interested in medicine, psychiatry, ethics, society, history, and literature. He has been in active clinical practice since 1985 and is currently an honorary consultant to the Sri Ram Bharatiya Institute of Science and Research, New Delhi. Welcome, Dr. Alok. With this, I hand over the proceedings of this webinar to our chairpersons, Dr. Alok and Dr. Shekhar Seshadri. Kindly take over. One will introduce the speaker, Dr. Nilesh Mishra. Dr. Alok will do that. It will be displayed on the screen. And both of you can have some introductory remark and carry on. Welcome. आलोक जी आप इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tufan Pati, and thank you to all the organizers of Thursday Musings, which I think is on its 280th something episode. It's I think a very welcome and very useful endeavor. So thank you very much for inviting us, Shekhar and myself, to be chairs for this really interesting program. The speaker for this talk is somebody I think who is familiar to pretty much all of us. It's Nilesh Mishra. Nilesh has an iconic and unique status amongst India's creators and change makers with a massive following that cuts across social strata, age, and geography. He's loved by people of many generations, from teenagers to grandparents, for the diversity of his work. He indeed can be said to be one of India's most loved storytellers who has revived the art of the lost art of oral storytelling. And his radio show, Yadon Ka Idiot Box on Big FM, still has a cult following in the country across people of all generations. He has, by conservative estimates, reached out to more than 100 million listeners. How many zeros that has, I think, leaves at least my eyes a little glazed. He's also he's also a prominent indie film lyricist, having written and for many popular hits amongst his 40-odd films. He's written 5 books and has been a leading journalist who has won India's top journalism honors. As a social entrepreneur, he runs Gaon Connection, which is India's largest rural media communication platform, which has a presence in every state, including 480 districts. He also runs Slow, a lifestyle brand that encourages people to slow down their lives and live rooted, mindful, and healthier lives. The flagship of this thought is his hugely popular conversation show, The Slow Interview, which has a cult following and is watched by millions of people. He's best known for his unique style of storytelling, which combines elements of folklore, nostalgia, and social issues. He's also a leading change maker, who has constantly pushed ahead with new and innovative content ideas that have affected millions of people in positive manners and changed the lives of generations over 2.5 decades of his work. So we're obviously delighted to have Mishra ji here on the show, and we are going to hear him talk. But before we go on, I'll hand over to Shekhar for a few introductory words, and then we can get into the meat of the show, as it were, and take it from there. Shekhar?
थैंक यू वेरी मच आलोक. बड़े अफसोस की बात है कि नीलेश जी ने अपनी दाढ़ी शेव कर दी है, वरना मेरी पूरी सफेद, आलोक की ऑलमोस्ट सफेद और नीलेश जी की fantastic salt and pepper would have been a great start to the show. साथियों, संक्षिप्त में, every human being is a story, every human being has a story. In all recent conferences, that the lived experience group and voices of people who have mental health issues and voices of caregivers has become a very major focus of endeavor and of thinking and debate and so on. And in fact, इस सत्र के बारे में जब मेरी लोगों से बात हो रही थी, तो प्रश्न ये भी उठा कि where are the people with lived experience? तो मैंने कहा ये प्रश्न आप ऑर्गेनाइजर से पूछिए, and I will suggest to them that they do a session with lived experiences voices, and I'll be happy curating it because those are stories as well. But response में ये आया कि we need to look at integrating voices, otherwise ये experts versus non-experts वाला मामला हो जाता है. Then I reassured Nilesh Mishra is not a mental health professional. So you're safe and sound because mental health is too important to be left to mental health professionals, and we need people like Nilesh to provide an alternative lens to look at this issue. The last thing I want to say is narrative therapy itself is a hugely scholarly area of work, and how re-narrativization of people and their stories make the way to healing and transformation, where the therapist himself becomes part of the narrative of the person who's undergoing distress and challenges. But then how do you use stories and हमारे श्याम सुंदर वगैरह गुरु जो थे निमहंस में, and the old scripts, and how you use stories and precepts and old scripts to to really look at healing transformations, and particularly in child mental health, this is a very major issue of how does transformation in the human predicament actually take place. तो चाहे वो बच्चे हो या किशोर किशोरी हो या वृद्धावस्था में लोग होते हैं, उनकी विडंबना और जीवन परिस्थिति जो है उससे उनको बाहर निकलना हो, तो कहानियों का महत्व क्या है, कहानी क्या है, कहानियों का महत्व क्या है, कहानी की प्रक्रिया और कहानी की ताकत जो है in transformation is what the spirit of this particular session is. And it's a pleasure in this 239th episode of Thursday Musing to warmly welcome Nilesh Mishra, who's not only a journalist, a blogger, but also a lyricist, and who works in the sphere of issues concerned with development, to share with us his perspectives on the power of story as far as healing is concerned. तो ये कुछ प्रारंभिक विचार के साथ it's our honor and privilege to invite Nilesh. Alok, since you have been a historian and you have also sort of chronicled a lot of stuff on the stories around mental health, perhaps you'd like to share a thought or two, and then Nilesh can get into the thesis that he wishes to share with us. Alok?
Sure. So, without this business of experts and non-experts, which Shekhar was referring to, the fact is, as far as mental health is concerned, pretty much everybody is an expert. And I think we need to figure out the nature of those endeavors. As somebody who's been interested in history, the importance of history in any medical discipline, and especially in psychiatry, is something that I think is vitally important. And I think that something that perhaps has been not given as much attention as it needs to perhaps have done. The urge of, or let us say, the tensions between developments in biomedicine and the psychological aspects has left very much a rather gaping hole in the importance that in the recent past that psychiatry, I think, has placed on both the historical aspects and the psychological aspects. But anyway, without much ado, I think we will let Nilesh come in and hear and talk a little bit to us, and then maybe we'll have a lot more questions to talk about. And so Nilesh, your thoughts on this matter?
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you to all my eminent fellow panelists. बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है आप सबसे बात करके. I stumbled onto the arena of mental health because my listeners started talking about it. But much before that, people have interested me. What they feel, what they say has deeply interested me. And as a journalist, I have had the opportunity to hear hundreds, possibly a few thousand people across the country just open up about what is in their mind. I feel that there is a secret sauce uh, about journalists in the field who are able to make people open up to them. Why on earth would somebody open up to a stranger about the sadnesses of their life, the tragedies of their life, and be honest and cathartic about it? And that introduced me to a skill which I have tried over the years, which is sadly vanishing among a lot of people, which is listening. And I feel we've stopped being good listeners. And being good listeners is, to me, tied to empathy. Another great secret sauce, according to me, of communication and of being a good communicator. So, armed with these invisible, tangential superpowers, uh, I pursued many years in journalism. I reported from Kashmir to the south, to from Rajasthan to the northeast. Uh, uh, Met people face to face, dealing with difficult circumstances. A lot of people who were unable to express what was going on in their mind, and I think it was a humbling experience, and then a quirk of fate happened, and a series of events led me to Bombay, and I had already entered the field of films by starting to write songs way back in 2000. My first song was Jadoo Hai Nasha Hai, which some of you might have heard in just some. Um, and then I formed a band, and I said, well, let it be a storytelling band. And I had never written a story in my life. It was a sheer accident. My life is a series of beautiful coincidences. मेरी जिंदगी एक खूबसूरत इत्तेफाकों का सिलसिला है. So here I was in this office of the CEO of one of the large radio networks in the country, and I was offered a radio storytelling show without ever having narrated a story. This was daunting, but I have always had a what the heck kind of attitude towards new things in life. And whenever I've done something new in life, I've never done it before, which I now treat as a strength and not a weakness. And here I was, I wrote a small story called Diwali Ki Raat, which was about a man who is not able to go home on Diwali. It was a story of only about 12 to 13 minutes. It was written as a pilot for this show. And I recorded it on the mic for the first time in a proper studio. And when I hear it again, my intonation, the flow of thought, my tonality is nowhere structured or planned, or it's extremely um, ad hoc. It's voluntary, and that's, I think, started to define my work as a storyteller. That I never wanted to be an advertising voice, so to say, or a manicured voice, so to say. When this pilot was produced, the sound design was done on it by an employee of the radio network. I got a call from him. He said, "Sir, एक बड़ी विचित्र बात हो रही है. अलग अलग डिपार्टमेंट से लोग आ रहे हैं, कहानी सुन रहे हैं, और आंख में आंसू लेके बाहर जा रहे हैं." Now, this boy was from Jhansi. He had seen the small town, and a lot of the people from different departments who were coming were also from different cities, small towns across the country, who had often not been able to go home on Diwali or Eid or Christmas or any other festival. And the show started, and in the first week, I realized that we had walked into a minefield of unexpressed emotions. Uh, it was like nothing I had experienced before as a communicator. I was a I was a deputy executive editor at Hindustan Times before that, and I'd taken a sabbatical and then quit my job and so on. And my father came to Bombay and he said, "Yaar, tumhe naukri chhod di." And I opened my I opened my Facebook page and I said, "बैठिए आपको कुछ दिखाता हूँ." And people were writing about the previous night's story. Ki, Sir, I saw this, I heard this story, and it changed my view of how I see such and such. Someone said, I heard this story and it changed my life. And I asked my father, I said, when was the last time I did anything in my life about which anybody said that it changed their life? However momentary or full of exuberance or full of excitement that response might be, or emotional. And I suddenly started to realize that office that I walked into, that building that I had reached in Bombay, and that accidental turn in life that I had taken uh, had changed my life and was about to change my own life. Now, this is 2012. It was a different country. Um, the the cable TV era was, of course, at its prime. Radio was supposed to be sort of fizzling out because um, the CD era, the lack of good content on radio, all of that was a major challenge. The piracy of songs was a major challenge, and uh, if we look back in 1991 when the economic liberalization happened, the effect of that kicked in over the next 5, 6 years, and what that did was that parents who were earlier telling stories to their children were now often coming home after their children had gone to sleep. This is a very invisible sort of apostrophe in modern communication history, in India at least. But I feel that when storytelling vanished from Indian homes, a lot else vanished. There was a time, all of us have seen that time, when our parents, our grandparents used to tell us stories. I used to go to my village with my parents, and my father used to tell me stories under the open sky. My नानी used to tell me stories. मैं उनके पैर दबाता था और शर्त होती थी कि मैं कहानी उनसे सुन रहा हूँ और मैं हूँ करता रहूं, तब उनको पता लगेगा कि मैं सुन रहा हूँ ध्यान से. And it was part of the familial bonding in millions and millions of Indian homes. And then cable TV arrived, which was the first nail in the storytelling coffin at the time. Cable TV arrived, and the same grandparents who were earlier telling stories now became busy, and they were watching their favorite TV serial. Dinner started to happen, watching TV, and eating habits began to change, sleeping habits began to change, late night TV started. A lot was changing within Indian families, which is often not documented. And sorry, on my side, not on the expert side, but often not documented on my side, where I feel something beautiful started to vanish from Indian homes. Something that was a glue, that was that was a that was something that held together relationships. That was something that was that time when two or three members of the family, often the oldest and the youngest, were able to sit together and form this invisible connection between two generations, and that began to go out of the window. And after cable TV, when economic liberalization happened, like I said, parents started to come home very late. Um, the the joint family was already breaking up across Indian cities, small towns, and the people who were the storytellers were now far away, in 400 kilometers away, 500 kilometers away. The grandparents were away, and children were living with their parents in their homes, and in often in different cities. And storytelling was a casualty. And I feel that in a country where with some of the oldest traditions, oral traditions of storytelling in the world, um, this was that speed breaker. This time, these 10-15 years, that began to cascade into a different kind of impact on children, on adolescents, on their expression, and many other things which experts like yourself can better capture. And when I, by accident, by beautiful coincidence, started storytelling on national radio in 2012, I think somehow one started to scrape off the dust of urban existence that had settled on the lives of a lot of people. All of a sudden, here was this man being audacious enough to express what was in their head, what was not being expressed, the experiences of loneliness, the experiences of being away from families. My first story was, my mother-in-law said that when I heard this story, I realized that, we feel that parents miss children when they are away. But I realized after listening to this that children also, feel achingly and deep with deep longing for home, for not being able to be there on festivals. It's not that this is a one-sided pain, this is one-sided longing. I had a lot of friends. One of the editors of a national newspaper, a lady, she said, my husband never used to hear your stories in front of me, and I always thought that he doesn't like them. And one day when he came to pick me up and your show was on, and I came and he changed the station, and I realized he had tears in his eyes, and then I talked to him, and he said that he used that time to cry while he drove. Um, and I mentioned this on social media, and I realized that India is actually a country of weepy men who never get a chance to weep. Not at home, not at work. They always have to wear this facade, this mask, and probably that time from work to home, a lot of people used to complain that कहानी खत्म नहीं होती, मुझे पार्किंग लॉट में रुके रहना पड़ता है, और मुझे घर से फोन आ रहा है, मैं ऊपर नहीं जा रहा हूँ क्योंकि स्टोरी खत्म हो रही है, मैं ड्राइव करता रहता हूँ, मेरा देखिए पेट्रोल का बिल बढ़ गया है, फलाना फलाना, with love, and I'm deeply privileged to hear all this, but I realized that the show had suddenly become the glue, or the friend, because radio is a deeply personal and a deeply intimate medium, where in that moment it's just me and the listener in this entire universe, in this entire world. There's no one else. And suddenly there was extraordinary response. I could never have imagined that this show, which happened by accident, and frankly, it happened not because of any creative angst. It happened because I had formed a band, and that band had gotten a chance to make a CD, got an album with Saregama, and I wanted a radio partner. And well, I wanted to only promote my CDs, and that's why I had done this 3 month contract with Big FM, and suddenly it was like as if a new world was opening up, a world that I knew very little about, a world of emotions that I had not come face to face with. And I started getting responses across age groups. And uh, there were students in Kota where the show had a cult following, and they used to, I used to often get messages that हम मैथ्स आपकी कहानी पढ़ते हुए सुनते हुए मैथ्स पढ़ते हैं, और फिर बाद में कई साल बाद आता था कि सर अब आईआईटी के हॉस्टल में पढ़ाई करते हुए आपकी कहानी सुनते हैं. And a lot of people, a lot of students said, sir, we are very troubled, we have high levels of stress. आप कुछ अपनी कहानी से जिंदगी से बताइए जो हमारे लिए इंस्पायरिंग हो. And I said, ऐसा कुछ तो है नहीं, but I wrote a story based on a true incident, which was called Papa Se Shart, which was a bet that I had with my father, because he thought I should, like all fathers of that era, he thought I should become a doctor. So he urged me to take biology, which I hated. तब मेढक काटते थे. And at the first parent-teacher meeting, I told the class teacher कि मैम इन्होंने जबरदस्ती मुझको बायो दिलवाई, मेरे कोई मन नहीं है बायो पढ़ने का, which led to an awkward silence in the room. And then my father came up with this brilliant and a very wily trick, may I add. बाहर निकलते ही कहते हैं कि यार ऐसा करते हैं, एक शर्त लगाते हैं, अगर तुम्हारी फर्स्ट डिवीजन आ गई, मैं यूपी बोर्ड में था, जो विच इज द टफेस्ट बोर्ड इन द कंट्री, अगर फर्स्ट डिवीजन आ गई तो जो तुम चाहोगे वो होगा, वरना जो मैं चाहूंगा वो होगा. So that was that. We had this bet and I won it, and I earned my independence and chose the arts. And I talked about this, and then in the end I had recorded a conversation with my father about this, and he said that I'm so happy कि मैं वो शर्त हार गया, and parents should not live their dreams through their children. And around then, I started to realize that this is not just entertainment. This is something more, what we were doing. And at that time, I was writing all the stories. It was the toughest thing I've done as a creator. I used to, in the morning, 9 o'clock, go to the studio, record a story, have lunch at the radio station, come back and think of a new character every day and a new story. And I started to form or create for myself a phrase that I still use, which is universal emotions. And I realized that the emotions that we were talking about in our stories were universal emotions. Why was a person in Kashmir uh, relating to a story about a typically North Indian family कि वो पापड़ बड़ी है, बारामदे हैं, और एक North Indian vibe है? Or why is a person from Guwahati or Shillong calling me, where Hindi is not understood, in an everyday manner? Or why are people in Hyderabad or Bangalore? And I realized that while the plots might be different, while the characters might be not familiar, but the emotions are very, very familiar to them. And over the years, I've actually listed a lot of the universal emotions that our stories are spun around. Well, things like leaving home, things like, will my child have a good future? Um, will my child be able to pursue this career that I've chosen for him or her? Um, uh, the fear of losing love, I mean, a whole lot, it's a master list that we have. And then when I started writing these stories around different characters across age groups, that's when the can of emotions really started to open. Because in the beginning, the first 10-15 days, they were mostly around younger protagonists, around love or some other relationship, etc. But well, we had a story called दादियों का राज, फॉर एग्जाम्पल. एक दादी हैं और उनके हस्बैंड की डेथ हो गई है, और दे वर वेरी क्लोज, एंड suddenly the family, her son to begin with, has assumed that she would want to live a certain kind of life. As in, mourning is a shawl that is draped over this senior citizen, whether they want it or not, whether they want to live their life or not. सत्संग में जाने के लिए इंतजाम कर दिया गया है ड्राइवर का, भजन के सीडीज आ गए हैं, कुछ गीता प्रेस की किताबें आ गई हैं, और एक जिंदगी है जो निर्धारित कर दी गई है एक बुजुर्ग के लिए हिंदुस्तान में, खासकर वो बुजुर्ग जिसने अपना साथी खो दिया है. But that Dadi and her husband were great lovers of Jagjit Singh. And they had actually bought 2 tickets well in advance, 6 months ago, to go to this concert by themselves. And those 2 tickets are in the cupboard, kept under the newspaper. But how does Dadi say this? How does Dadi come out of this stereotype that the world has pushed upon her, that she must mourn? And her sister comes home one day, and she talks to her, and then how they secretly escape the house. They have this escapade, and they go to watch this concert, and so the story is about that. But it was also about how we see elder people, and how we assume. There was a story called uh, Qissa Facebook, which was about the online romance of a senior citizen with another lady. I think one of them was a psychiatrist, by the way. Um, so, so slowly, as we began to delve into different age groups, different social stratas, there was a story that I wrote about called Saregamapa, um, which was about this girl who gets married. The girl loves music. Her father had gifted her a harmonium on her birthday. It was most precious to her. And then she gets married, and as she's stepping in, वो एक को कलश को पैरों से ढकेल कर और चावल का की बौछार हो रही, she hears her husband say, हारमोनियम को स्टोर में रख दो. And that is when she realizes that her ambition and something that she most loves is going to be locked up in a storeroom, because it is not important in the house where she has now come. And then every day she goes, looks at the harmonium and cries, and she cannot walk those 6 steps to walk up to it. And then what does she do one day to follow her dream? And so many women wrote to me, so many, and they said, how do you know this story? This is my story. Or how do you know this story? This is my mother's story. Because this is the story of every other woman in this country. There might be harmonium or not, there might be music or not, but something precious, something loved, something that they have held on to is something they had to give up as they embraced this new life. There was this story called um, a, a postman ki diary, and in which there's this postman who's retiring, and um, they have this little game in their home that his wife slips little notes to her, like little letters, and the son also sort of got that habit in childhood. And as he's going to the retirement function, the son informs the father that he has bought a two-bedroom apartment not far from their home, and they would want to shift there. And the father, the postman, is shocked and deeply troubled, and sees this as some sort of a betrayal कि वो घर छोड़ के जा रहा है। वो कहता है कि उसको सेंस ऑफ स्पेस नहीं है। वो कहता है कि ये जगह हमारा घर छोटा पड़ रहा है उसके लिए। एंड द वाइफ सेज कि तुम भी तो किसी का अपने पिता का घर छोड़ के आए थे और वो यहीं तो जा रहा है। एंड देन दिस in the beginning the grandson says कि दादाजी आपका टाइम गया, and he feels left behind, this postman, because the era of email has arrived. And in the end he walks up to his, long story, but he walks up to his grandson and says, beta mujhe email karna sikha de. And so this whole coexistence of generations, and all our stories were around some kind of societal friction. uh, the drama was not from somebody, jumping in front of a car or punching somebody. The drama was in the head. And the drama was deep. It was very familiar. It was a shared pain. It was something which either the listener had experienced or had seen around them, or it seemed like a known emotion of any of a happy or an unhappy type. And the universal emotion then started evoking a response that when we started the show, we had never expected, that it was probing deep into people's lives. And of course, they had made it their daily habit. They had made it, part of their dinner time. Many of them, a very large number of them, said that because it was clashing with TV, it was 9 p.m. It clashed with the prime time TV show, so they were not watching TV but listening to the show. I've had such beautiful and overwhelming, reactions. There was this Bengali family I remember where there was the granddaughter whose dadi was very sick, and she said कि मैं और दादी एक साथ आपकी कहानियां रोज सुनते हैं। और दादी रोज पूजा करते समय अपने घर के लोगों के नाम बोलती थी। एंड वन डे शी सेड कि आज से उन्होंने आपका नाम भी बोलना शुरू किया। How do you react to something as beautiful and as powerful as this? I've had people sending me images of uh, a patient in blue or green clothes having come from their the operation theater with headphones. A picture given, sent by a daughter or a son, and the patient has a gentle smile on their face, and the message is that I want to thank you for this moment. She's in deep pain, but I gave her your stories to listen to, and it's alleviating this moment a bit for her. We've had patients of cancer write to us how the stories made them feel strong. We have had patients, people who had, who could not sleep properly, people who had issues with anger, who said that they had a lot of, in their layman terms, the anxiety, and they said that the story, listening to the story is a daily habit now for us, and uh, we uh, it's something that is part of our day, and that made me realize the enormous responsibility that this this task entailed. That the fact that this was far bigger than just going on the mic and saying something entertaining. The fact that we the listeners were pointing out that we never ever stereotyped or objectified anyone in our content at a time when it is very easy to make fun of people on the basis of their color of skin, of their weight, or the number of hair on their head, or the part of the country that they come from, or whether they are from a city or village. And listeners were responding to this. And a lot of listeners started to say, sir, जब हम कहानियां आपकी सुनते हैं तो लगता है कि हमारे साथ ही ऐसा हो रहा है, लगता है कि सब सामने चल रहा है, लगता है हमारे साथ हो रहा है. And many years later, when I started exploring this more, I think there's a phrase for this in psychology. If I'm not wrong, correct me please. I think it's called neural coupling. Where when I'm narrating a story, me and the listener become one, and and they feel that exact same emotion, whether it's fear or longing, and I was fascinated that thousands and thousands of listeners have said the exact same thing, कि लगता है हमारे साथ हो रहा है. In fact, we had to create a new tagline for the show, कहानियां जिनमें आप मिलते हैं खुद से. Uh, and 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 all that. I mean, sorry, I'm just rambling, and I can ramble on, but all that made me realize not just the power of radio, but the power of storytelling. It was very humbling, and I feel that I have become a better human being narrating stories, um, because every single day I become the other. Storytelling has taught me to what I call becoming the other, because every day I am a 40-year-old man stuck in a boring job, or a 75-year-old grandfather who nobody understands, or 12-year-old, or whoever. And this there can be nothing more humbling than seeing the world from another person's point of view and being able to do it every single day. Why are we so angry on social media today? Because we cannot see the world from the point of view of other people. The point of view of other people from other religions, other regions, other geographies, other age groups. And I feel that storytelling is what helps us do that. And I strongly believe that my listeners have become better people because of the stories, because they
So
could see the
if I
world from the
if
points
I
of
were
view.
to interrupt you here, Nilesh, so the power of storytelling, I think you have very vividly brought out. Now the thing is that there is a story, there is a narrative, and as you very deftly point out, there is a higher order thinking behind it. तो सवाल ये है कि when you are crafting the story, are you consciously thinking of the higher order thinking कि वो उसमें मैं cohesiveness भी लाऊंगा, मैं othering को भी कम करूंगा, मैं डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के बारे में भी सोचूंगा, कि मैं नैरेटिव पे फोकस करूंगा, क्योंकि the narrative is the power of the story, and like all human interactions, the the higher order thinking behind the narrative, which undergirds the narrative, shall we say, is what is the takeaway. So जब आप स्टोरी बनाते हैं तो आप इसके बारे में सोचते हैं कॉन्शियसली कि is this, or it could very well also be this is who you are, so this is the story that you're telling.
I feel that the Mandli, which is now our team that writes these stories, and before that, when I started it, I think it is a manifestation of how we think. And in my case, because I was able to set the tone for it, having started the Mandli, uh, the do's and don'ts to me were very clear. The things that the things that journalism had taught me, the things that being a good listener had taught me, which is why I mentioned them in the morning, the things that empathy had taught me, were now coming into play. I will give you an example. Whenever new members join the Mandli, uh, it takes them some time to realize ki, and I feel that they when they go back into the real life, their point of view also changes. तो एक किसी ने कहानी लिख के भेजी कि कोई लड़की थी, वो घर वापस आई और वो आके थक के बैठ गई और माँ ने कहा, कहाँ तू धूप में बैठ रही, तेरा देख रही कितना रंग तेरा दब गया है। और वो गई, वो पानी लाई और ये किया वो किया वो किया। मैंने उसका स्नैपशॉट मंडली के व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे डाला, इतना बड़ा पैसेज। मैंने कहा, डज एनीवन सी एनीथिंग आउट ऑफ प्लेस हियर? तो जो नए लोग थे वो, अरे सर यहाँ पर ये वर्ड हो सकता था, यहाँ पे ये कॉमा हो गया, वहां पर ये हो गया। और जो पुराने थे उन्होंने कहा कि सर ये जो बोला है कि तू बाहर से आई, तेरा रंग दब गया है, बात बहुत बारीक सी है। आप कह रहे हो कि जिसका रंग दबा होता है वो कहीं
हुआ क्या
कमतर होता है,
हम्म?
आप ऐसे निकल गया वो। लेकिन हम कहेंगे नहीं किसी को, इसलिए हमारी कहानी में कोई किसी को नहीं कहेगा। और अगर कहेगा तो वो कहीं ना कहीं आर्क में गलत प्रूव होगा। हमने एक लिखी थी कहानी, वो काली लड़की, कि वो एक लड़की थी जिसको गाना गाना बहुत अच्छा गाती थी, टीचर आगे कभी उसको खड़ा ही नहीं करती थी, हमेशा लास्ट रो में खड़ा करती थी। और उसकी कहानी है, नाउ शी कम्स बैक एज अ सेलिब्रेटेड सिंगर टू बी ऑनर्ड इन द सेम स्कूल, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा। So I feel you're very right about that, sir, that I think this is who we are. I think we have empathy. मैंने कोशिश ये की है, my daughter is 10, और अभी भी मतलब वो उसको शायद 3 या 4 साल की उम्र से पता है कि किसी को मोटा नहीं कहना है, किसी को बुढ़ा नहीं कहना है, कि ये शब्द यूज ही नहीं करने हैं। और वो जब करेक्ट करती है अपने आपस में किसी को, तो मुझे लगता है कि चलो कुछ सही तरबियत हुई है। So we tried to, this is what we tried to do, that you cannot loosely use such things, such shortcuts, which are so often used for entertainment. People don't even think about it. एक दिन मैं रेडियो का एड सुन रहा था, यूं तो लड़की है लेकिन, कि वो था कि किसी का कोई स्पंकी है, बड़ी जोशीली है, यूं तो लड़की है लेकिन। तो मैंने उसके सीईओ को बोला, मैंने कहा भाई बोल क्या रहे हो तुम, और तुम बोल के निकल जाओगे। लिखने वाला लिख गया, उसको रिकॉर्ड करने वाला रिकॉर्ड कर गया, उसको ऑडियो इंजीनियर कर गया, और किसी ने पास कर दिया। 4 से 5 लेवल से वो गुजर गया। लेकिन हमारा इतना डीप इंटरनलाइजेशन है इन इस प्रेजुडिशियल थिंकिंग का। टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में आप पढ़ते हो कि सो एंड सो डाइड इन एन एक्सीडेंट, ही वाज द ओनली सन। ओनली डॉटर तो कभी ना लिखते हो आप। तो ये इतना गहरा है हमारे अंदर कि तो वो आई फील कि दिस इज आवर काउंटर नैरेटिव which we've tried with which listeners, I'm very happy to say that listeners notice. Listener की एक कहानी सुनी मैं, और अपनी माँ को पहली बार थैंक यू बोला, क्योंकि मैंने जिंदगी में उनको कभी थैंक यू नहीं बोला था किसी चीज के लिए वगैरह। जी सॉरी।
So Nilesh, you are our Dadi Nani combined now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being that. So I think we are mesmerized by your presentation. Actually, we have a habit of asking too many questions, but since your narration is so good, we are just trying to be good listeners. So thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Alok sir, please continue.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nilesh ji. It's fascinating listening to you. And I think that हम सब के लिए all of us who listen and, or at least try to listen on, perhaps should be listening more than we are perhaps doing. I think the importance of both listening and the construction of that narrative is I think very, very important. So
Yes. Sir, sir, may I interject here?
No,
जी बिल्कुल.
Yeah, sir, construction of narrative that you are saying. So I'm very interested in knowing this construction of narrative because Nilesh is working in another field. So how do people in your field make such good stories that people relate to? So suppose if I want to adapt your storytelling skill, I want to change the story of a patient. मैं बहुत परेशान हूँ, गुस्से में हूँ, उलझन हूँ, बर्बाद, परेशान, ये negative thoughts हैं. So what is your and your team's thought process to revise his story, please?
Thank you for this question. Actually, several doctors have already written to me over the years, including mental health professionals. I remember one in the UK who said कि मैं पेशेंट्स को आपकी कहानियां सुनाता हूँ और क्यूरेट करता हूँ करेक्ट वाली ना, और ये आता है बीच बीच में, लेकिन so one is that I want to do something structured in this field. I am very, very keen to combine storytelling and the power of mental health professionals and come up with something that becomes an assistive tool. And I would love to collaborate with whoever would be keen to collaborate with. आपने जो बात कही कि हमारी जो कहानियां हैं वो एक दो शब्दों से कई बार आगे बढ़ती हैं, which is what if. What if इतना और they are structured in this manner. Suppose there is a 45-year-old man who is deeply troubled in his life, and if we were to make him a character in the story or make him a secondary character in the story, well, firstly we would want to understand what does the expert want to convey. So maybe, okay, well, here are the 4-5 things that you would want that person to know. Is it that no, the world does not pity you, the world does not make fun of you? Suppose that is a messaging. Or, well, if you make an effort, life will get better, or what? And then we will craft that into our narrative. We will find another character, for example, who will convey that sort of message. We will we'll create a plot point where that maybe the the person is alone at home and something happens in the next door, which needs somebody's help. Some children are in trouble, and he comes to the rescue and he becomes a hero for that moment, which is a feeling that he has never experienced for the last 10 years, suppose, just making this up. So the plot point will have to be created in a way that it's a moment of self-actualization. It's a moment where that character feels that they have redeemed themselves. So, but to understand what is the messaging, that we work with cancer experts, for example. We work with like what should be the messaging. So I think this structuring is done cleverly, but it seems very effortless. पर उसके पीछे एक विज्ञान होता है, एक science होती है. If this 30-minute story is 6 segments, it will have 5 hooks, which is 5 plot highs where the story will, where the break will come on radio, but otherwise your interest will suddenly, this thing. So the plot is structured that way, so that the interest continues until the end.
Okay.
I wanted to, sir, ask you,
जी.
one of the most difficult people to deal with are people who have addiction. वो छोड़ते नहीं हैं, घर वाले बहुत कोशिश करते हैं, काउंसलिंग सब करते हैं, Any stories you have, or any story, any experience you have where it's helped people quit alcohol or drugs or cannabis or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a campaign with WHO against alcohol addiction, where we did do storytelling, and it was more, I think it was for a specific audience in their ambit, but uh, they have not shared the impact of that for us. But I feel that this is something that can be done. That said, any kind of habit change, and this is one of the most difficult to undo, can only come with a very, very sustained intervention over a long period of time. And, who am I to tell you? But I feel that interventions, whenever they are done through storytelling, if they are ad hoc, they could be something as unrelated as washing hands, after going to the bathroom, to giving up smoking. But all of these require very sustained. So whenever partners come to us, whether it's government or non-government, we say that it should be every day, and also it should be that subtle that the person does not feel that we're being preachy in any form. They should come for the story, and our messaging should get through in a very subtle, very invisible manner. That is our effort.
And so, Nilesh, before we let you go, I think you are short on time. So before we let you go, talking about the slow thing, the slow lifestyle brand, the slow interview.
Hmm.
So what is this flow, and how is it helping you, helping others? The story behind slow.
So my my home in my village is called Slow. In my village, outside, hour and a half out of Lucknow. But that's not an accident. Um, Around 2017, I moved from Bombay to Lucknow about 2014, and then at some point, because my parents had started a school in our village about 52 years ago. My father returned from Canada with his childhood dream to start a school in his village. And I started living next to the school. And when I did, and one day my wife asked me, board kya lagana hai? And I said, let's call it what we feel when we are here. And we called it Slow. And then uh, conversations started happening with people who came. So there were sometimes film actors or sports persons, or et cetera, et cetera. And then when COVID happened, and in those conversations, I realized that these were, again, just like in the storytelling cycle, these were manifestations of how I saw the world and how my guests saw the world. So there could be discussions on childhood, on parenting, on agriculture. On this was just two people talking, but the point of view that they had was a healthy point of view. And suddenly, people, hundreds of people, were saying, "We also feel this," but no one was talking about this. And when COVID happened, I wrote a whole manifesto, like a whole idea, the idea of Slow and how Slow sees the world, and which is as follows. We live in a world that is full of negativity. It's a world where, whether you listen to something on radio, or you watch something on TV, you watch news television, or you read, or you eat something where you're being lied to on food labels every day, or you go to a restaurant where it's so noisy that you cannot hear the other person, uh, and you reject that often, and you say कि यार यहाँ तो सुनाई तक तो पढ़ नहीं रहा यार, कहीं और चलते हैं. What you're seeking is what I've called slow. When you watch news television and say अरे क्या चिल्लाते रहते हैं हमेशा, what you're seeking, the opposite of that, is what I've called slow. And what when you're listening to songs that have just horrible lyrics, what you're seeking, and it then became a whole point of view of how you look at life. How should Slow has a point of view on algorithms. I'm the biggest public enemy number one of Byju's and White Hat Junior. Biggest. I mean, I've tweeted that the day this man goes to jail, मैं प्रसाद चढ़ाऊंगा. ये मैंने ट्वीट किया हुआ है, एक बार नहीं, एक से ज्यादा बार किया हुआ है. व्हाइट हैट जूनियर का जिसका बिजनेस मॉडल ये है कि बच्चे अगर 2, 3, 4, 5 साल से कोडिंग नहीं सीखते तो उनकी जिंदगी बर्बाद हो जाएगी. कैन यू इमेजिन? ये बिजनेस मॉडल है और आप लोग समझेंगे, आप दिमागी एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, कि इससे क्या असर हो रहा है, उसकी पूरी जिंदगी पे क्या असर हो रहा है. सो आई हैव हैड अ very aggressive stand which nobody was taking at the time, and suddenly parents said, my god, thank you, कोई तो बोल रहा है, वरना सब तो इनका विज्ञापन कर रहे हैं, पूरी मीडिया तो बिक गई. So Slow has a point of view on agriculture, on architecture, on education, on algorithms, on content. It is a way of living life, right? And it's not a prescriptive one, like I will tell you, it is evolving. It is organic. People will contribute to it. But I have started meeting hundreds and hundreds of people at airports and in public places who now use the phrase, sir, I am turning slow. They've started using that. They get it. They get that एक चीज मैं यहाँ कर रहा हूँ, एक चीज यहाँ कर रहा हूँ, एक यहाँ कर रहा हूँ, but ये connect होके एक whole बना रही है. It is part of a whole. It is not disparate. A song that I do, which might be a folk song, which takes back to your roots, have millets, narrate stories to your children. These are all part of something larger, but which is well thought out. These are not scattered things. So that is Slow.
Thank you. Thank you. This was for you, Amrit. You have to turn a bit slow.
I knew this was coming,
Look
but
at the t-shirt I'm wearing.
let me share something.
Yes,
very
we saw that. We saw
Let
that.
me share something very personal on this platform. Because when I was going through my worst phase in life, I would sit in the car, listen to his voice, not what he spoke. I would become down, I would cry and go back home happier. There's a compliment I would give to Nilesh. The voice, I didn't have the courage to hear what he used to say. The voice was enough to bring tears in your eyes, get you back normalize you, and then get back home smiling like as if nothing has happened. Thank you, Nilesh. I wanted to thank you for that.
Just to put a frame of reference to this as we close, संक्षिप्त में बस 4 चीजें कहना चाहता हूँ. एक तो ये है कि नीलेश जैसे एक और दिल्ली के निवासी थे, निवृत्ति के बाद जो गोवा में रहते थे, his name is Sudhir Kakkar, relocated to Goa. अक्सर narratives की when he spoke about thematic centrality, thematic coherence, and thematic continuity. Any story of predicament or distress, ultimately, what is the central theme or experience that is being articulated? And therefore, narratives of trauma, narratives of anxiety are always fragmented. And how do you bring sort of coherence into that? The second perspective is something Nilesh said about the whole issue of listening and empathy. When I used to teach counseling, before I unleashed the trainee therapist onto an unsuspecting client, I used to spend about 6 months doing only interview communication skills and listening. And we had a very interesting exercise called helpful responses. Very simply, my husband came home last night. He was very drunk. He hit me, broke the television set. I didn't know what to do. If you wanted to be helpful, what would you say next? Written exercise. Person would say, I'll try to be reassuring. And my response was, I'm not asking you what your intention is. Your intention to be reassuring is important and significant. What will you say?
Right.
Or look at it, did you do anything to provoke him? No, that's not helpful. Third brief thing is stories and narratives. If you look at the whole oeuvre of people from Kurosawa and Rashomon, something happened. And there are 4 narratives. They're all true, but they're completely different. So how do you develop perspectives? And the last thing, of course, let's not forget, बाबू मोशाय जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, लंबी नहीं. एक फिल्म का एक डायलॉग, उसकी गहराई देखिए. And what Nilesh spoke about, the whole thing about slow, जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, धीरे से बड़ी जिंदगी जियो. So एक तरह से, that's kind of the message that we take. So thank you very much, Nilesh Mishra, for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And
Thank you so much,
sharing
sir.
with us,
Thank you very
your
much.
life's journey and the substance of your creative work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
sir. Thank you, sir. Actually, Nilesh has another commitment, so he has to leave a bit early. So I'd like to invite Amrit to say thanks if Tufan sir is not there. I think Amrit, over to you to
Yeah,
wind up the session.
I have already spoken what I have to. I have
Yes, you have.
silent.
कोई तकल्लुफ
Too
नहीं
many.
है
Amrit, you also mentioned so many comments in the chat box. People have actually shared their stories. So they
They've
want to
shared
thank
so
him.
many stories. Everybody is thanking you. Everybody is happy that you could come and talk to us, and that's wonderful. And along with Dr. Shekhar, who taught us the art of creating narratives. You give him a line, he'll create a story. Dr. Sareen has been wonderful, and I think I would also thank Dr.
You can thank me also.
You thank me.
Vishal, Dr. Shobhit, Dr. Alim, and Dr. Tufan.
You
We had a full packed,
You
intent.
forgot me, man. You forgot me.
I'm telling first, आपका नाम लिया विशाल बोला यार.
That's right.
Focusing on somebody else, I think. So thank you, Indra sir. We'll call you another time.
Thank
When
you.
you
Thank
have a
you.
little more time. Thank you so much, and
Thank
good night. Good night.
And
Good
good
night,
night.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
Amrit,
so
Amrit.
much.
Yes, yeah. बोलो.
Yeah. I think he has left. So I think we'll be close now.
मैं लिख दिया हूँ slow बोल के अपने नाम पे slow.
Low. ठीक है बस.
Shekhar sir. Sir, गाना नहीं हुआ.
एक गाना हो जाए.
Nilesh has left, so it is up to us now.
यार एक्चुअली सुबह से कई गाने जो हैं वो मेरे जहन में मंडरा रहे हैं, तो खासकर कि मेंटल हेल्थ से there are so many things about life and so you have the song in the head, it doesn't go out of your head, and the song that was और रफी के गाने वो आ रहे थे, and it was about someone who suddenly finds love, and suddenly this song was going in my head. बहुत शुक्रिया बड़ी मेहरबानी मेरे जिंदगी में हुजूर आप आए कदम चूम लूं या फिर कदम से याद आया वो पाकीज़ा का सीन, वो ट्रेन में वो सिर्फ उसके कदम देखता है, और so how these sort of connections in terms of disparate experiences kind of so it was almost like a narrative antakshari in my head, and then फिर कदम से कदम पे कदम बढ़ाए जा, तो कदम पे कितने गाने हैं, कितने गानों में सनम शब्द है, कितने गाने में दिल शब्द का उपयोग होता है, दिल देके देखो दिल देके देखो दिल देके दिल भी क्या चीज है, and so on and so forth. So I think that Dinesh Bogra, for example, has written this book on on films in Bollywood and the kind of mental health themes that have abounded in many of the Bollywood kind of films. So just a word on that for whoever is remaining, just about 80 of us. We use films a lot in our teaching methodology as pedagogy. So we always follow the intent, content, method, and process paradigm. In a given session with a group of clients, children, or in an individual session, what is my intent? Is it to speak about heartbreak? In heartbreak, what is the content? Is it betrayal? Is it the intensity of sadness? Is it resentment and anger? Is it revenge? And the method we use is films, to look at films of unrequited love or broken love. And then we process the films for alternative narratives and ways of engaging to really take place. And so that's the beauty of stories and narratives. So that's what I wanted to say. And I hope that the couple of lines of just one or two Rafi songs that I've sung would remain with you as a capping of this very nice session with Nilesh.
Thank you, sir. TSS sir also there. Sir, any words from you?
Okay.
Then we close.
Okay. I was very interested to look at that heading, narrative reviews. As an editor, I have seen, in fact, the modern editors, somehow they don't like any article which actually carries this narrative. But in sexual medicine, in Journal of Psychosexual Health, you might have seen, at least alternate issues, I'm actually putting up one article or other, which are actually based on narrative aspects. And when we try to look at people who visit, cite, whole host of these things, narrative reviews are also extremely important, and they are all very good experiences for us to understand nuances. A topic which looks at the data doesn't mean anything at all from the person who is trying to understand experience and many other such related things. It's a great issue, and listening to the speaker was something extraordinary. I really enjoyed it, and I think this type of programs really enlighten us in a very big way. Best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We can close the meeting now, Alok sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Closing the meeting. Thank you so much.